We are continuing in today in Perek Dalid, chapter 4, Mesillas Yesharim. Today is Friday, the 19th of Tishrei, October 14th. The Ramchal continues and he says, Ube Perek HaKol Chayavin Amru, Rabbi Yochanan kad hava mati lahaikra havibachi. So the Gemara quotes over here that when Rabbi Yochanan went ahead and reached the following pasuk, he used to cry. What's the pasuk? V'karafti aleichem lemishpat vayisi eid memar b'machashvim u'bamenafim u'banishparim l'sheker u'ba'oshke sechar sochir. Evet sheshok lemalav kalos v'chamuros takani yishlo. So he quotes here the Gemara Maseches Chagiga, and the Gemara says, Chash Baruch Hu says, I will bring you to judge. I'll bring you to judge those who engage in sorcery, those who engage in adultery, those who swear falsely, and those who go ahead and withhold the wages of a laborer. Now, obviously, when you look at that pasuk, it's like, what thing is not like the others? So you're comparing over here sorcery, which is idolatry, immorality, right, adultery, swearing falsely, taking Hashem's name in vain, and withholding wages. So obviously, the withholding of the wages doesn't seem to fit with the rest of the list. Rabbi Yochanan understood that the point that the Navi was trying to make, quoting the pasuk from Malachi, the point that the Navi was trying to make is that there's din v'cheshbon, there's judgment, and there's an accounting for every act, big and small. So the Lord said, "Even shoklan of kalos kamuros," a servant whose master weighs serious averos, like lighter averos, takani yeshlo, does such a person have a remedy? Ubevade she'in kavanas hamaymer shia onish al shtein echad, ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu einu mashalim ela mida kineged mida. Obviously, the pasuk, the Gemara is not trying to tell us that the punishment for adultery and for idolatry is the same thing as for withholding wages. Obviously, they're not. Amnam ha'inyan hu shele'inyan mishkal ha'masim kach olos bekaf ha'kalos kimo ha'chamuros. Kilo yashkichu hachamuros asakalos v'yalim hadayin eno mehem klal kasher lo yalim hachamuros. Rather, the point that's being made here is that there's an accounting for everything, and obviously, the smaller averas don't cancel out the bigger averas. There's an accounting for everything. Everything is weighed. Obviously, does every avera carry with it the same repercussion and ramification? Of course not. But at the end of the day, everything we do has an impact and is measured by the Ribono Shel Olam. Ela akulam yashgiach v'yifakech b'ashva echad. Ladun kol echad mehem ulahanish achar kach kol echad ke'echad kefi mashu. Rather, again, as we just said before, there's an accounting for everything. V'hu mash Shlomo Melech Amar Avalav Shel Amar ki es kol ma'aseh Elokim yavi b'mishpat. A pasuk in Koheles which we'll immerse Hashem read tomorrow. Shlomo Melech writes, every single action Hashem will bring before Him for judgment. Ki kasher ina Kodesh Baruch Hu maniach miliskol kol ma'aseh tov kata kimoshu, kach lo yaniach milishpat lo chiach kol ma'aseh ra kata kimoshu. The same way that every single mitzvah a person does, big mitzvah, small mitzvah, ultimately Hashem gives reward for such a mitzvah. So too, unfortunately, lahavdil, for every avera that one commits, there's an accounting as well. The Ramchal goes on and he says, "Well, the hotzim ilei harotzim leispasos, the lachshov shelo ya'aleh ha'adam baruch hu bedinov, hadvar makal v'lo yikach cheshbon aleim, ela klalahu kol omer hakadosh baruch hu vatranhu yivasru me'ohi v'chein amru im omer lecha yitzhara chata v'hakadosh baruch hu mochelach al tishmalo." So the Ramchal says it's just human nature is such that we try to justify the commission of small infractions by saying, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to pay attention to that. That one's not a big, God's got bigger fish to fry than this. And the idea of saying that Hashem doesn't pay attention to something, if you think about it, is such a fundamental lack in one's emunah. Because part of what makes the Ribono Shel Olam so incredibly special is that He's attentive to everything. There is no action which goes unnoticed. There is no action that doesn't have some type of reaction. Everything we do, big or small, is measured and meaningful in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and receives some type of divine response. The Gemara Maseches Chagiga, which is so beautiful. If the Yetzer Hara tells you, just sin and Hashem will forgive you, don't listen to him. Meaning what? Hashem does forgive though. What does it mean, don't listen to the Yetzer Hara? In other words, if you think you could just sin, and it's just simply overlooked. If a person thinks they could sin and just such an action has no repercussion or ramifications, that's false. V'zed davar pashat u'mavura. Ki hinei kel emes Hashem. Humash amra Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom. Hatzor tamim pa'alo ki kol d'rachav mishpat. Kel emunah ve'ein avel. Tzadik v'yashar hu. Ki kevan she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu rotza b'mishpat. Hinei kach over al hamishpat. Ha'aleim esa ayin min aschus kimo min achova. Alkein. In B'mishpat, so again, he quotes over here the pasuk that says, Hashem, Hatzor Tamim Pala, Hashem is the rock. His actions are perfect because all of his pathways are mishpat, are justice. El Emunah, Kel Emunah, a trustworthy God. Ve'ein Avel, there is no iniquity. Tzadik v'yasharhu, Hashem is righteous and Hashem is straight. And the Ramchal writes, Kevan Sha'Kodesh Baruch Hu wrote Mishpat, since Hashem ultimately wants mishpat, he wants justice. Hine kach over ala mishpat, ha'ale mes'ay min aschus, kimo min achova. Alkein, in mishpat hu rotze, tzarech sheyitin l'chol ish kidracho ufri ma'alalav, betachlis hadiktuk bein tov bein lemutov, v'hainu, kel emuna ve'ein avel, tzadik v'yasharhu. What does it mean that it says Hashem is a kel emuna? Shapir shezichron levracha, L'tzadikim v'lareshem ki kach yamida, v'ala kol hudan, v'al kol chetu ma'anish, ve'ein lihi molet. So here the Ramchal is really just trying to reinforce the same basic point over and over. And it's incredibly important because what the Ramchal is really driving at is at the end of the day, if you think about why do we make mistakes in life? Right? Why do we make mistakes? Why do we commit averos? So it's easy to think, you know what, taiva, it's desire, gaiva, arrogance. At the end of the day, and I mentioned this a few shiurim back, it's because we think that our actions don't really matter. We think that at the end of the day, what is the big deal if I act this way? It's not a big deal. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will just simply overlook it. And when we speak like that, and when we think like that, when we act like that, what we're doing is minimizing the impact of our own actions. We're saying, I don't matter. My actions don't matter. And the truth is, there's nothing further from the truth. We matter so much as individuals, but because we matter so much, therefore our actions matter so much. And because our actions matter so much, therefore what? Therefore everything has a repercussion and a ramification. Every single thing we do, big or small, is taken notice of. Kadosh Baruch Hu takes notice of it, and it's measured by Hashem. So a person who tries to convince themselves that they can engage in egregious or erroneous behavior without ramifications because Hashem is not looking, or Hashem will overlook it, is not only minimizing the impact of God, but ultimately is minimizing the impact of their own actions as well. We'll stop over here for today. Wishing everyone a good Erev Shabbos and of course a good Moed.